Hello everyone, I'm Siddharthan. This is the 10th topic in our complete Python course where we are going to discuss about the basic data types in Python such as integers, floating points, strings, boolean and NoneType. So this will be the agenda for today's video and let's get started. So for coding, we will be using Jupyter Notebook as our notebook environment. So let's just start with a very basic data type, integers. So I'll say this as integer values, and integers have a keyword called as int, so they belong to the class of int. So here let's create a variable and call this a and pass in some integer values like 10. So we know that this is a positive integers, and integers would comprise of positive numbers, negative numbers and 0. So later I can just print this a, and that's going to print 10 here, right? So or maybe I can just put a string before this and say the number is a and run this. So it's going to say the number is 10, right? Now, at some point, if you want to know or if you want to validate what's the data type of a variable is, in this case, the variable is here, right? So if you want to verify this data type, then you can use this keyword type and within this parenthesis pass that variable. So here basically I'm checking the type of a or checking what's the data type of a is, and I'll run this cell and that's going to say this is an int. So this is the keyword that we have over here. So this is how you can check data type of a variable in Python. So similarly we can just consider positive integers, negative integers and so on. So I'll just consider another example where I say that my int is the variable that I'm creating. Let's say my int 1, which is equal to 10, and let's say that my int 2 is equal to minus 100, a negative number. So here let's try to print these two values and also print what the data type is. So here I'm going to say this is a positive integer, put a colon here, and we have already discussed about f string, which is going to substitute the variables within a longer string. So here I'm going to substitute this with my int 1, and then I'm going to say the type is, here I can say type of my int 1. So basically what we are doing is we are printing this positive integer and mentioning this 10, and also beside that we are mentioning the type of that my int. So similarly I'll just copy this entire thing and replace this positive with negative, and instead of my int here we are going to print the details of my int 2, right? So this is just like printing the integer values, and this is going to say that this is a positive integer 10 which we have printed, and it has detected the type as class of int, and negative integer is minus 100 negative number, and it also belongs to this class int. So now we need to understand what this class int is. So previously we have used this type of here, right? So when you just run this type here, it's going to say it's an integer, but when you put this in a print statement, it would say it is class of int. This is because integer or this particular value is an instance of the class int. So let's discuss about this class and objects in the later part of the course, but just remember that when you just run type a, it's going to say int. When you run print type a, it's going to say that it's class int, which basically means this is an object that belongs to the class integers that we'll be discussing later. But that's all about integers. So now let's look at floating point values in a similar way like this one. So this will be float. Floating point is like nothing but decimal values. So that as the keyword float with lowercase f. So as I hope that you know that Python is case sensitive, so you can just mention this int in Python, so that becomes a keyword, but you can't say int with the uppercase letter. Maybe I'll show this. So when you type an int, so that's going to consider this as a keyword because this is like an inbuilt keyword in Python. But if you use capital I or uppercase I nt, so that's not going to consider this, so as Python is case sensitive. So similarly for float, the keyword is float with a lowercase f. And here let's consider another example. So let's call this as b, and let's say that 10.5. You can print this b, and then you can check the type of b, run this, and again you can put a print statement, and that's going to say this belong to the class float, right? So floating points are nothing but decimal values. So this is about it. So the other data type that we can discuss is a complex number. So let me put this as complex number, and for this the keyword is just complex. So I hope you know what a complex number is, and we all would have studied this in high school math, right? So a complex number has two parts, a real number part and an imaginary part. So let's say that my complex number, so this is a variable I'm creating, and let's say the value is 3 plus 4j. So we call this 4i or 4j or something. So this is the complex number. So this 3 is what we call a real part, and 4j is what we call as an imaginary part. So this j is nothing but, this is the imaginary unit, that's nothing but square root of -1. So you can't do a square root of -1, and that's what we call a imaginary part, and this is the imaginary, number section. And this complex number are kind of used in the lot of fields. It's used in mathematics, engineering, electrical engineering, and so on. So it has like a lot of applications, and in Python we have an inbuilt data type for that as well. So if you want to again check the type and print this and so on, so you can just print this as my complex number, and then we can print this type as well. So now print type of my complex number. So it's going to say, and the other thing is complex number will be enclosed in parentheses when you print it, and it's going to say it belongs to the class complex number. So similarly, you can also have a complex number that is completely imaginary, that doesn't have an imaginary part. So let's say that has only 4j, so it's going to say 4j and it belongs to the class complex. So this is how you can create complex numbers in Python. So the next basic data types that we are going to discuss is a string. So this probably would have worked on it a bit in our previous videos as well. Strings are nothing but, it can be a character, can be a character, nothing but an alphabet, or it can be a word, or it can be a sentence, or it can even be a paragraph. All these text data is what we call as string. Okay, and let's say that I'm creating this as my string, and all the string values should be enclosed in quotes, because variables are also created by this letters, right, alphabets, right? So distinguish that all the string values should be enclosed in double quotes or single quotes. So maybe I'll call this as my string 1, and this can be, let's say, hello, and let's say this is my string 2, and here I'll say Python. So this is what about string. So you can either enclose the string in double quotes, a starting double quote and a ending double quote, or you can use single quote in both those places. So that's valid. So you can use either double quotes or single quotes, and later you can print this my string 1. So you should put a underscore here and print this my string 2. So that's going to print allo Python. So similarly, you can check the data type as well. So here I'll just put a type keyword before this, enclose this in parenthesis. So it should say class string. So str is the keyword that we have in Python for string. So I'll just put this as string, and in bracket I'll mention the keyword that is str. Okay, so these are the string keywords, and we have also seen how we can use f strings in order to substitute some values. So let's say that we have this a is equal to Python, and then we have b is equal to hello, and within this braces we can say a. So that variable is going to be substituted, but you need to put a f here. So it's what it's going to do is, so it says hello, and it replaces whatever is present within this curly braces. So this value or the a that we are mentioning is nothing but the variable that we have created. So when I finally print this b, that's going to say hello Python. So it's not like you can use f strings only in prints. You can use this f string outside this print statement is it as well, and this is something that we kind of use a lot. And string is like a very important data type, and we do a lot of operations on that as well, like slicing, and how you can like chunk a part of the string and so on. So there are like a lot of use cases on that. Maybe let's discuss that in a later video, but for now the basic string is enough. So we have the string that is represented by the keyword str, and then we can represent this using f strings as well, using the letter f before the string that we have. And the next basic data type that we have is boolean. So boolean data type is nothing but just true and false. So true and false. So these two words are the boolean values, but they should start with uppercase letters. So true and false with uppercase T and uppercase F. So if you change it, it won't work. As I said, Python is a case sensitive programming language. So here I'll say that is Sunny is equal to true. So as you can see, when I type in true, this color changed to green, but if I put a lowercase t, it's going to be in black as usual. So this is how we can know that this is a keyword. So here I can just say print uh, is it Sunny, and let's say that, let's just replace this with the variable that we have created is Sunny, which has the values as type, as true, right? So let's run this. That's going to say is it Sunny, true, because we have assigned the value true to this variable called as is Sunny. If you want to look at what the data type is, you can just pass the variable here, yes Sunny. So that's going to say boolean value. So it's not like you have to pass only the variables, you can just pass the values itself. So I can say type of true, so that's going to say it's a boolean value. Similarly, you can just check the type of integers not by passing the variable, but you can pass the actual integer value itself, and it can say integers. So similarly, false is also another boolean. So you can say, let's say b is equal to false. So here I'm assigning b the boolean value false, and then just print b and the type of b. So when I use a print with and type, we know that it's going to say class bool. Okay, so those are boolean values which has only two values, true and false. So similar to this, we have another type of value called as none type. Okay, and this is represented by none. So none basically represents there is no value in that variable. So let's say that my none variable is equal to none. So none starts with an uppercase n. So when I print this, uh, let's say f of none type example, and I can put a curly braces as this is a f string, and just put this my none variable here, and that's going to say none type example is none, or you can just like print this one itself. So that's going to say none. And if you want to check the type, copy this entire thing, put it here, and say type. It's going to say class none type. So it belongs to the class none type, and it is represented by none. So here true and false are represented by bool, right? So similarly, this none is represented by the class none type. And this none is basically used in a lot of conditional statements. Like we would have if and else condition, where we would check whether a condition is satisfied or not. Again, which we'll discuss later about this if and else. But remember that in those cases we use this none. So sometimes we want to make sure that a variable doesn't have any data in it, it is a none type. In those cases we run a particular part of the code. So in those places this none type is like used a lot. So it also like has a lot of usages in Python. So these are all the very basic data types that we have in Python. So we have integer values, and then we have the floating point values. Again, it can have like any decimal places. Here we have just taken one value, and then we have discussed about this complex number which has a real part and imaginary part, or even it can have like imaginary part alone, and then just a basic version of string, boolean value, and none type values. These are the basic data types. As I said, in the subsequent videos let's discuss about the conversions that we can do. So how you can convert an integer value to float, or a float value to an integer, and how to convert an integer to a string, and so on. And then we will discuss about the different operations that we can do on these numerical data types. Later we can discuss about the string operations, and also the other data types that we have, such as list, which is similar to an array that has like multiple values. So we have list, set, dictionaries, and tuples. So we will discuss about that. So I hope everyone understood what we have done today in this particular video. So that is all from my side, and I'll see you in the next upload. Thanks for watching.